Sorry, there's a meowing cat behind me. I beg your pardon.
I've just been delivered a hot cross bun. Winning. And a cup of tea. Cats and tea. Hi there, everybody. Dave here from HeyUGuys. And today I'm joined by Scott Davis. And we are going to be talking about Afterlife Season 2, the brand new season from Ricky Gervais after such a fantastic Season 1. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let us know in the comments what you think of Afterlife once you've seen it. So, Scott, Afterlife, tell us about it.
Yeah, we were discussing off air. It's not Afterlife, one word, or the Afterlife. It is Afterlife. I love the tagline. Is that for Series 1 or Series 2?
I think this post is from Season 1, I think.
Yeah, hell is other people, which in current climes could mean something different to what it actually means in the show. But
I like this photo as well. I think that's a really good, really clever marketing on that.
Yeah, it highlights the amazing cast, which we'll come on to. But Afterlife is the latest brainchild of course, Ricky Gervais, who, of course, did The Office and did Extras and many other movies in between. And this is a story. He plays a guy. So he writes and directs and stars and executive produces. He does everything in this show.
Yeah,
this is his
it's very
baby
much
again.
his show.
I think this is I might be wrong in this, but this is the first show he's done without Stephen Merchant. Like the first series he's done without Stephen Merchant outside of the movies that he's made. Obviously he made David Brent without Stephen Merchant, etc., and his stand-up. But this is his baby. And so he plays a guy called Tony, who we meet at the beginning of Season 1. We find out that his wife, very sadly, has just died of a long few years of cancer. She's been through treatment, been through chemo and everything. And then she unfortunately, that lady there, she unfortunately passes away. And it's about his kind of change from being this. He seemed to be a very kind of upbeat, very avuncular, very funny, very almost like Ricky Gervais when he's on. Very funny, very witty, has a great sense of humor about him. Is very, he charms a lot of people. A lot of people like him, but throughout the period of his wife's chemo, and she's obviously deteriorating, and obviously she passes away, he kind of changes, and he becomes this. In Season 1, he becomes quite impulsive, and he's very kind of off the rails and
suicidal,
as the tagline suggests. Yeah, as the tagline suggests, that he's suffering and he wants everyone else to suffer, and believes that he's just going to go out and be a cantankerous old fuddy-duddy, but a Ricky Gervais version of a cantankerous old fuddy-duddy that includes a lot of swearing, a lot of C words, a lot of rudeness, and a lot of bluntness. Ricky Gervais is very blunt in the way that he talks about stuff in real life anyway. So this is a version of him in some respects. And throughout Season 1, it's about his journey from being this kind of upbeat, very, very lovely guy to becoming the complete opposite. But then his journey to slowly try and drag himself out of that hole that he's created, and to start welcoming kind of people back into his life slowly but surely, because he lives in this small town, works for a newspaper, so he's surrounded by people all the time, which at the beginning of the Season 1 he kind of despises. He hates everyone and everything bar his dog. His dog is the one thing that's kind of keeping him alive, and he always says during the show, if the dog wasn't there, he would have topped himself after his wife died. So it's about a guy being up above the clouds, being amazing, enjoying his life, loving his wife, enjoying what they had together, coming back down to earth with an absolute thud and going straight through the ground, and the slow descent back up to normality, which throughout the series there's lots of ups and downs with him. And season 2 does a great job of continuing that story and keeping it fresh, but also he starts Season 2 without going into spoilers. This is in episode 1. He talks about trying to become more zen, trying to find peace, trying to find a center again, even if that center isn't necessarily what he wants. He tries to embrace life again, but as most people would, finds it very, very difficult to live the life the same way that he used to, because he has this massive void, which is the loss of his wife.
I think the genius of this show is, like, we've discussed this many times, and it was exactly the same as Season 1, but you can be watching it and be laughing because of whatever's just happened, whichever ridiculous storyline that we happen to be watching, and then literally 10 seconds later you're crying. And I don't mean crying actually crying, because it's so sad. And I think that the genius of Ricky Gervais in this show is the fact that we all go through love. We all go through loss in its varying forms. And I mean, this show did obscenely well for Netflix and for Ricky Gervais. And there's already talk of season 3. We were lucky enough to interview Tony Way and Joe Hartley yesterday. Scott spoke to them, and they were already saying that, or Tony was saying he thinks Ricky's got an idea for season 3. So let's hope that comes off. Season 2 definitely leaves it open for a season 3, but equally it could. I mean, as with The Office, you know, it ended on a high. It didn't. Ricky Gervais didn't drag it out, so we'll see there. But yeah, it's just. I mean, Scott, is that the same for you? Were you laughing then crying, or is that just me?
No, 100%. I think the way that he's able to balance the kind of the humor that he always brings to everything else that he does, and couple that with these really sad moments, and they're not sad moments for sad sake. They feel very real. You know, they're very humanistic. It is how we would react as people in real life. You know, that we you know, in that situation with him, we could go, there's him with his on-screen dad. That
David Bradley.
You can go from the great David Bradley. You can go from having, you know, an amazing day, and all of a sudden something completely go off, and it makes you cry. But doing it with a show, particularly one that's written by someone who is famed for making, you know, comedies. You know, The Office is a comedy in many regards, and so is Extras. But the one thing and obviously, again, as an extension, Stephen Merchant, back when they did those 2 shows, their ability to combine that with a real human story, a real human emotions, real human relationships, only adds to the warmth of it. And in this one, it's a very warm show, but it is, as you say, it's very sad as well. And it's not sad for, you know, he's not seeking out it to be sad all the time, or he doesn't navigate the show so it's funny 1 minute and has to be sad the next minute. It's just how it unfolds, and with all the characters that surround him, the way he's able to balance all of that is beautiful. And there's some moments in season 2, particularly towards the second half of the season. I mean, it's only 6 episodes. The way he's able to combine all of those things is amazing, and how he's able to bring kind of the mundane things of life, like he's always done. And, you know, like in The Office, people working in a bog standard office, but to find humor and humanity and warmth, and also, you know, love stories and sadness and everything else. The way the way he's able to, when he's surrounded by all those people who have their own kind of their own tics and their own personalities, it's almost impossible for it not to be funny. But those same people are still going through their own stories as well, which are sad and very touching. His ability to do that is I think second to none. I think people were surprised with this one because it's very different to the other 2 shows. You know, he's by himself, but the way he was able to measure all of these things, I think a testament to him as a writer, that he's able to go out on his own and do this. And I think this is, I wouldn't say this is his best show, because I still think The Office is tremendous, but in terms of the stuff he's done in the last sort of 10 years or whatever, I think this is, you know, I think this will stand the test of time for a long time. But you're right, I think he needs to, it'll be interesting to see if he goes to season 3, because he's never done a season 3 before. You know, he did 2 seasons of The Office and 2 specials. He did two seasons of Extras and then 2 specials. To do a season 3 would be very out of the mold of what he's done before. But I think this story has enough juice in it and enough more to say for it to go for maybe for another 6 episodes, or maybe he will do 2 specials for Netflix. You never know. But I think there's a little bit more story to this, and the way he's able to do that. Sorry, there's a meowing cat behind me. I beg your pardon.
It's like cameos. I mean, so
from my cat.
I think what I like most about this show, so obviously Ricky Gervais' character Tony is the main story, but there's so many different threads, and every single character. So we saw them in that photo there of The Office. So if we bring that back up again, I mean, if you look around here, all of these people have got their own story as well of love and loss. And I mean, there's only 6 episodes, like Scott said, and they're all 23 minutes long, roughly. To fit in the amount of story that we do from all these people. So there's Tony Way and Joe Hartley there, and this chap, Joe Hartley's son, whose name is, can you remember his name? None of this stuff's on IMDb yet because it hasn't come out. James, is it?
Is it James? Yeah, James.
I
think it's James. Yeah.
I don't know his real name, but his story I think is excellent, and I mean it's in the penultimate episode of this season where there's a talent show, and it's well worth waiting for. It's something you'll never forget. In fact, here's a shot from it now. So that's him and his mum. But yeah, the genius of being able to have so much story, and you feel so much for these characters. Penelope Wilton, who in season 1 he meets on a bench because her husband has just died, and they continue to meet on that same bench throughout season 2, just to discuss how things are going, and they're very honest with each other, and they lift each other up, and in their sadness they make each other happy. I mean, you mentioned the dog earlier. The dog is a character on its own. The dog saved Tony's life in season 1. Without the dog, then he would have ended it. I think season 2 focuses heavily on David Bradley's character, so Ricky's dad, Tony's dad, and just the journey that they've gone through together throughout the years. But yeah, all of the Office characters, they've all you just feel for all of them in different ways, and that is again the genius of Ricky Gervais writing, I think. So as Scott mentioned, Tony works in a local newspaper. It's not very successful. How it's still running, I've no idea. But that's again just comical. The fact that this ridiculous, not that it's ridiculous, but this local newspaper that's got nothing to write about, and so you see Tony Way and Ricky Gervais' character going off to interview people throughout each episode. I think there's one per episode actually. It's exactly the same as in season 1, and each of these stories is completely balmy. I think there's one character who has been posting letters into a dog poo bin for the last however many years, and I always find it hilarious that Tony Way's character, who's the photographer, I think, either that or he's playing cards on his computer, he only ever takes one photo. He didn't take any more than one photo, and he always even if the photo's awful, then obviously it gets into the paper. But I think the first people that they meet is this lady here, who can't remember her real name, but she is in what was it called, One Foot in the Grave, and she was Victor Meldrew's wife. But if you're not a fan of the C word, then Afterlife is not for you, because the C-bomb is dropped, I think, within 5 minutes of the very first show, first episode. So yeah, but I'm guessing if you're going to watch season 1, you'll be fine with it. But yeah, it's a very sweary show.
Yeah, it's a very sweary show. I think because Ricky Gervais he's very no holds barred in anything he does, whether it's the shows, whether it's his stand-up, or whether it's even going on something like Graham Norton or Jimmy Kimmel or David Letterman, all those kind of things. He's never any holds barred. He doesn't care. He'll do what he wants to do. And I think that's also the genius of him, in that kind of that nature of him, where he doesn't really care, and he'll write where he wants to write, has seen him do all these amazing things, and he's able to express himself in ways that perhaps other people wouldn't be able to if they weren't in the same headspace as Ricky Gervais is on a daily basis. So you're right. Yeah, if you don't like the C word, or even swears, a lot of swears, and not even just swears. I mean, there's jokes, there's bodily fluid jokes, etc., as you've kind of mentioned with the talent show and stuff like that. But I really like the kind of, not a device per se, but the story strand of every episode. They go and see another person who's local, and they've got not really got a story to tell. They've just got something to talk about, and it's almost throwaway. It doesn't really matter what it is. I mean, there's one in later episode where a girl is obsessed with getting plastic surgery, and then she gets something else on her body done, one of her private areas, but becomes so obsessed with it that she even though if it goes wrong, she doesn't go and get a refund or anything like that, or have sue the thing. She's just said, "Oh, it was just a mistake. I just got another one." She got
a discount. She got a discount on the next one.
You got a discount, yeah. Have you got a discount? Yeah. And then you get the classic line, which is in most comedies with people with plastic surgery, where Gervais is like, "Are you crying?" And she's like, "Yeah," but she's just like this. He's like, "Are you crying?" Can't really tell. And then
no, he's like, "Are you happy or sad?"
I don't want to. Yeah, you happy or sad? Are you happy tears or sad tears? I can't tell. And there's other ones I don't want to spoil, because some of them are really fun.
Yeah, they're really good.
In the last episode, that is just brilliant. But it finishes with such a lovely moment with Ricky Gervais and part of that scene.
The family
from that scene.
in that, yeah.
The family, yeah, where it's just like, you know, it's worth going through all the kind of silliness to get to that moment where those moments are what make the show so special, I think.
Yeah, and I was thinking about it yesterday. I've actually Shazammed a couple of the songs out of the TV show because the music in this is, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. It's just so perfect. It makes you feel happy or sad, or I don't know. They just pick perfect music that can make you feel happy, like I've got goosebumps now, but equally can make you feel melancholy at the same time. It's just very, very clever, the entire show. So I think in a nutshell, we're loving season 2, aren't we?
Absolutely, yeah. I think the thing you say there about music, I think he's always done that. I think if you look at The Office, particularly in the Christmas specials where they're at the Christmas party, not necessarily because of all Christmas songs, they're very specific to the narrative they're trying to tell, and they fit them perfectly. You know, obviously when at the end of The Office, when Dawn comes back to get Tim, there's like they wanted to take that songs, you know, back for good. The music almost speaks the story, but doesn't try and manipulate your reactions to them or your whether you want to be happy or sad, like you say, or melancholic or whatever. It's just there as a really cool kind of way of just being even more expressive in terms of the story he's trying to tell and to kind of surmise what the characters are feeling. I think it's very, very. He's always been good at that. And this one is no exception. There's some hits, like you say. There's some hits that give you goosebumps, and some of them where you're like, "Oh my god, that song! I remember that song." That's a great song.
It's more the string sort of melancholy. I just loved it. I was straight on Shazam. Like, what is this? I want to listen to it again. A couple of characters we haven't talked about yet are Joe Wilkinson and Roisin Conaty, who play Pat the postman. And Roisin is she's not a prostitute, she's a sex worker. As they make jokes too. Yeah, they make jokes too in the show. But they're just so good, and it's just 2 more characters, and I think we should just big up the whole supporting cast because everybody in this show just hits the nail on the head in every single scene that they're in. So again, in the interview that Scott did, and you should definitely check out the interview on our YouTube channel, Tony talks about the fact that they do read-throughs and things for the main cast, but when they bring in guest characters, which is mainly the interviewees, they haven't actually seen them and what they're going to look like and stuff yet. And a lot of the time, like the guy who's been posting letters in the bin, I mean, he looks hilarious. And the one that Scott mentioned with the plastic surgery, you know, the lady that plays it, you should Google her after and just see what she looks like in real life versus what they made her look like in the show. And I don't know how they got through the show, mate, you know, without just laughing constantly. And in fact, again, during the interview, Tony talks about the fact that Ricky just makes them laugh more than anybody. But it's just comedy, isn't it?
I was going to mention some of the cast, but always, again, going back to The Office and extras, the outtakes for all of those, there's so many amazing outtakes. And a lot of them come from Ricky Gervais acting like a kid and making people laugh. And it's one thing that Tony Way said, and Martin Freeman has said it over the years, and Stephen Merchant, and everybody else, and all the guest stars are on extras, you know, Ben Stiller, Samuel L. Jackson, Orlando Bloom, Daniel Radcliffe, all the guys that they had for that. It's him just doing what he wants and really annoying people and just like making them laugh when they shouldn't be, and they should be professional and everything else. Because he's the boss, they can't tell him, you can't do that. If he wastes 2 hours making people laugh on a scene, he'll just do what he wants. And I think it's a great energy to have on the set, particularly with this, where, you know, the mix, as you say, of the comedy and the melancholy and the sadness and everything. It's such a delicate balance, but they're still able to have so much fun doing it. And I think, yeah, the outtakes are always so much fun. But you mentioned some of the cast there. There's a couple of others that are in it as well. That just the whole ensemble. Obviously, we mentioned David Bradley as his dad. There's Diane Morgan as Kath, who does the marketing in The Office, who's really good there. She is with her dog. She's fantastic as well. There's Mandeep Dhillon, who plays Sandy, who in season 2 you realise that she, again, as you say, she's got her own story that we don't know too much about, and we learn a bit more about her. And she's desperate to kind of keep her job and to keep her life going, because the other side of life, and again, with like in real life, you don't see what's behind people's closed doors. You know, you think someone's okay, and then maybe not. And also you get Ashley Jensen, who obviously was.
Sorry, go on, Scott. Start that again with Ashley. I was gonna say something, but I've completely crashed you. Sorry, go on, start. Can you do Ashley? Start with Ashley Jensen again.
Okay. And then, of course, you get Ashley Jensen, who, of course, was his co-star in Extras, who was fantastic in that. And in that show, they were they were best friends, and it was never like a romantic thing. And I think the show worked better for that it wasn't a kind of romance; it was a real kind of friendship. And this one, it's the opposite. It is potentially a romance, but because of his the way he is, and obviously because of the circumstances and what his life has become, and how pained he still is, and how hurt he is from his wife's death, he can't. He can't see into his future of taking that step where he might be with somebody else, or might, take someone else on a date, or have just had dinner with them with friends. He can't penetrate that thing. And also, you mentioned Penelope Wilton. The scenes with him and Ricky Gervais are just incredible. They just sit on a bench talking, and it's the one bit of the show where he is more open and honest throughout. That's the moment where he's the most honest and the most open with anybody in the whole world, because he doesn't know her really, and she doesn't really know him. But their combined grief is what's kind of brought them together, and the moments with them are so touching, and they feel the most kind of real because they're both open, and they can just be. People don't completely understand the grief that they're both going to, but together, collectively, they do. So they're able to be much more honest than they would be with other people. So I think all of those people, all those characters, just elevate it even further and makes his character, you can forgive his character some of the stuff, because deep down he is a nice guy, but he's just struggling so much. And these people that he surrounded himself with, again, it's like The Office. It's not a family that he chose. It's not friends that he chose. It's just the people that he's lumped with. But he's trying to make the best of it, and they're trying to make him kind of, slowly but surely come out of his sadness.
Yeah, I some of my favorite scenes are when he says something which could be provocative, where people could react and go, why are you being such a insert word here? But actually a lot of the words, a lot of the looks that especially I think Sandy that gives him in The Office are very much, I want to hug you, I know you don't like hugs, but I feel your pain and I'm with you as your friend. And that's all he's looking for. I mean, the opening montage of episode 1 season 2 is basically, I mean, it shows everybody in their different spaces of life, and it tells you a little more about their story, like Sandy making her sandwiches for the whole family before she goes out to work, whilst they're all sat there doing nothing. Straight away you go, okay, I feel for her. And again, it was amazing use of music and the way it was edited, just beautifully shot. I love it. I'm trying to get my wife to watch it, but because she's not a massive Ricky Gervais fan, it's tough. And what do you think? Do you think if people have this stigma of, I don't like Ricky Gervais things, do you think they can push past that to watch this show? Or do you think it's a bit tricky to get past the language and just Ricky Gervais being Ricky Gervais?
Actually, I was having this discussion with a friend and one of my housemates, and they were saying the same as what your wife has obviously said about it looks quite interesting and the story and everything else, but because it's Ricky Gervais, it's the same with a lot of comedians per se, or actors who have a certain style or a certain way. There's a lot of people, like I go back to some of my friends, they don't like Jim Carrey the same way I do, because he's crazy and he's wild, particularly old classic Jim Carrey, and they can't stand him making the faces and do all these silly things and acting like a child, all that kind of stuff. But same with Adam Sandler, his early stuff, he's very, very childish. But I think, like all good comedians and all good actors, he is trying to push himself beyond what people expect of him. And I think that's as much a recommendation as I can give. Just for that, it's just, if you want to see him not be himself and really try and do something fresh and different, and really try and get out a different side of him that maybe he wasn't able to do, because David Brent people think he's David Brent all the time, and he is in real life. David Brent is so good because it is just Ricky Gervais. But I think with extras, and now with this, he's always tried to step out, and like all, again, not to go just to focus on comedians, but a lot of comedians, they're obviously expected to do one thing, but when they say, no, I want to do this, like Robin Williams doing Dead Poets Society, or Jim Carrey doing The Truman Show, all those comedians over Richard Pryor, Charlie Chaplin, whenever they try and step out, I think it makes them more interesting, because they're not doing what you expect of them. And I think particularly this show, it is him doing something very, very different. And yes, you get the language and you get lots of Ricky Gervais isms, but if you dig a little deeper, there's so much more to this show than just it being the Ricky Gervais show. And I think that's it's well worth seeking out just for that. And I think if you get past, I think after a couple of episodes, you kind of get past that barrier. I think you kind of forget it's him because he's not being David Brent, you know. Yeah. So I think if you stick with it, I think there's a lot more rewards. And it's not, again, as you say, it's not just about him. It is, but also all these other characters bring such a depth to the show that it's worth sticking around with it. And also for people that, you know, might not want to do it, they're only sitcom length episodes. They're only 20, 25 minutes, 6 episodes in each one. So really, you're only going to sit there for a couple of hours. Yeah, it's a couple of hours, isn't it? Really.
Although you don't have to, don't make yourself sit there for 2 hours. If you don't want to watch it, you don't have to.
Yeah, of course, yes.
But it's only 2 hours. Sit there and like it.
I mean, in the sense of like,
no, I know what
you
mean.
Sat and watched 24. You'd have to watch all 24 episodes.
Yeah.
But you'd probably, after the first 2 episodes, you'd be like, I've been sitting there for an hour and a half and nothing's really happened.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, you could probably watch the first 4 episodes and be like, oh, okay, nearly finished now. So
I've just remembered the yoga scene as well. Is it episode 2, the yoga scene? That's a great one.
Oh yeah.
See you next Tuesday.
Classic. But yeah, I think because he's being so brave with the show more than he has before, that's what I would say to people. It's like, just give it a chance. You might not like it, but I think it's worth a chance just because he's trying to be very different. And I think that should be celebrated.
And I guess, there's a serious aspect. A lot of people are going through grief from losing people, especially at the moment. So, you know, there's people out there, in all seriousness, if you need to talk to somebody about issues that you're going through, then there's helplines, you know, don't suffer in silence. And if you need to reach out to people like us, just to someone to talk to, we are here. So, I don't want to get all mega serious, but it is a serious issue. And, you know, I'd rather you message us and just ask for a hand and some guidance in where you can go than to suffer alone. So, yeah. Okay, great. Well, I think, we love this show. I mean, I don't know how it could have been any better, really. So I hope there's a season 3. And thank you, Ricky Gervais, for bringing something different to our screens, because, you know, that's what you're so good at, and we love it. So do let us know in the comments below what you think of Afterlife when you've seen it. I think it's out on Netflix tomorrow, the 24th of April in the UK, or probably hopefully worldwide. Do subscribe and like, and let us know in the comments what you want to see more of. And we will see you next time on the next review or on Mouth Off. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.